All. Thank you. Um, my name is Anne Marie Hart Bookbinder. I'm the Director of Food Security Programs here at the Montgomery County Food Council. So glad to have you all joining us today. I don't have any updates, but I did just want to share a few thoughts behind today's call as we were putting this agenda together. We know that many of you are direct food assistance providers. We know that a lot of funding, for this work is hard to come by or diminishing or staying flat, which means, you can do less with the money that you have with, the way that costs keep increasing and need keeps increasing. And so we're always trying to be mindful of opportunities where food assistance providers might consider different funding sources to support their programming in the communities. So we are really appreciative today to be joined by our two speakers, Amy Cress from Compass Pro Bono Services, and she will get us started in just a moment to talk about the wealth of resources that their organization can provide to nonprofits in our county, to help you kind of with all the decision making and issues that you can have coming your way. And we're also really excited to have Erin Canino, who's a practitioner in residence with American University's Washington College of Law, their entrepreneurship law clinic. And this contact was brought to me by Christina Moore at Shepherd's Table. Shepherd's Table has themselves just launched an LLC enterprise. I'm not sure if Christina is on with us today. I will be on the lookout for her after to share a little more information about that if she is willing. But just to give you a sense that, this is some of the work that's going on in our community as people explore different funding strategies. And, hopefully we'll have a little bit of a conversation time for that later after we hear some of the resources. So I'm going to turn things over now to Amy and let her kick us off today. But again, welcome to everyone, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Anne Marie. And I think we may have some folks on the call who might be familiar with Compass. And as I'm going through everything, I have no problem with you taking yourself off mute, shouting out a question. You're going to get a copy of all of these slides, and Anne Marie and Beta have kindly offered to monitor the chat. So certainly drop any questions that you may have into the chat as we go through. So I'm Amy Cress, Executive Director of Compass Pro Bono in Greater Washington. I'm a Montgomery County resident and have been for 16 years next month. And I first came to Compass Pro Bono as a volunteer. I started my career in advertising, then switched into nonprofit management. And when my husband and I moved out to the DC region, I volunteered on a Compass project as a way to help network and get to know the nonprofit community here in Greater Washington. And I joined the staff of Compass nearly 6 years ago. So I am, certainly well-versed now in the community, and I'm pleased to be here I'm going to take you through who Compass is, if you're not familiar, an overview of our programs, and I'm going to go at a fairly fast pace, but you're going to get a copy of the slides. There's more information on our website, and I'm certainly available to answer questions afterwards as well. So Compass Pro Bono, we are excited to be celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. We are about making connections between the nonprofit sector and business professionals so that it makes our community stronger. We really have a vision where the nonprofit sector has the resources it needs to really make strong communities. And we deliver these through pro bono consulting, nonprofit board matching, and we have an annual nonprofit governance summit that is open to everyone and takes place every spring. Oh, lost my cursor. There we go. So as I said, we are celebrating 25 years of serving the DC region. And just to give you a snapshot, we have worked with thousands of nonprofits. And, I'm not going to go through every number, but just so you can see the number I do want to highlight is the $155 million worth of pro bono services. That's actually a conservative estimate. We work with partners at law firms, high-level executives, and we use about a $200 an hour calculation for that number. So, but that's just a demonstration of the impact that we have had and the resources that we are making available through our pro bono services. So, as I said, 25 years in DC. We are also in Philadelphia, Chicago, the Twin Cities, and just this year opened in New York. And I want to just caveat really quickly we define the greater Washington region as DC, obviously, Northern Virginia out to Loudoun County, in Maryland, Montgomery, and Prince George's counties. I know we may have folks who are from outside of that region, and we don't yet serve nonprofits in Anne Arundel or Frederick or Baltimore counties. We are dipping our toes a little bit into Howard County, closer in. And the main reason is just that we don't yet have the resources to recruit volunteers. And we are really committed to local volunteers serving local nonprofits. So, there has been some talk about expansion that we're going to explore this year, but just for now, I wanted to level set expectations about what our service area is. So, our pro bono programs, we have several shapes and sizes of pro bono consulting. And the shape and size is really dependent on the size of your organization, the type of project that you need, and the scope of that project. And every project starts with a conversation with myself or my colleague Beverly, and we can really guide you as we are having a conversation with you about what's keeping you up at night, which of these programs is best suited to you. I'm also going to take you through our board matching. And then our low bono programs, I'm not going to go into as in depth. Those are fee for service programs. We call it low bono because we make strategic planning or AI support much more accessible. Our rates are well below typical consultant rates. But if you're interested in that, there's a lot of information on our website about those. So, what makes us really impactful for the nonprofit sector is that we are a nonprofit as well. So, the pain points that you are feeling, the things that are keeping you up at night, they keep me up at night and my colleagues as well. So, we really understand the challenges that the nonprofit sector is facing and what individual organizations, particularly in the DC region. We are really careful about recruiting and training the volunteers that we work with. We tend to recruit overachievers. Most of them have full-time jobs, and they are volunteering to put in an extra 3 to 5 hours a week working on a project for you. We make sure that the teams we put together are really that they have the subject matter expertise, the right skills to work on the project that you need, and we're training them. So if they have never seen nonprofit financials, we help them understand what restricted funding is, things like that. And many of our volunteers, in any given year, at least 50% of them are coming back. We have some volunteers who are this fall going to be working on their 10th projects. And many of them also stay engaged with the nonprofits they work with. So, this is a great opportunity for you to make some really deep connections with business professionals in the region. Our minimum eligibility requirements, you need to be a 501c3 organization with an active board of directors serving the DC region, and have core programming that is not faith or politically oriented, and no lobbying. And there's more information, a much more detailed list of criteria on our website if you have any questions. So I'm going to start by taking you through our on-track projects. These are our large team consulting projects. You can see the list of 10 service lines, and these are all available in great detail on our website. So I'm just going to do a very high-level description. Board development helps your board operate more effectively and efficiently. Maybe you need redesigning your committee structure. Decision support, you may have a great idea, but not the time or skills to do the due diligence to figure out a go, no go decision on should you open a new center, should you sunset a program. We can help you do that. Funding strategy helps diversify your revenue streams. New ventures, you might have a great program idea or an earned revenue opportunity. Similar to decision support, a team can help do that due diligence and put together a business plan for you, financial model, what a pilot would look like. Organizational performance and HR, that's pretty self-explanatory. Partnerships, collaborations, and mergers. Perhaps you are looking to identify or figure out a decision rubric to identify a potential partner or collaborator. Strategic alignment. This project would help you do the building blocks for strategic planning. So interviewing constituents, putting together a SWOT analysis or a competitive landscape analysis, whatever you and your board may need so that you can update your strategic plan. Strategic marketing is pretty self-explanatory. Sustainability analysis, particularly with all that's been going on in the DC region and budget cuts and government grants disappearing, sustainability analysis can really help you do risk assessment and financial planning so that you can put together scenarios as you think about where funding may or may not be coming from in the future. And technology, data, and AI strategy, these could be projects that help you take your glorified Excel spreadsheets and recommend a better database infrastructure for you, or do an AI assessment to help you think about how AI tools could help you operate more effectively and efficiently. And again, all of these are in greater detail on our website, and having that initial conversation with myself or my colleague Beverly can really help you get a better sense of which of these projects would be best for you. So the project team you would be working with on these larger projects, you would have a project leader who would be your primary point of contact. Depending on the scope of the project, you could have 4 to 8 team members supporting that project leader. And the teams are coming from all different backgrounds depending on the types of skills that are needed for your project. We work with a lot of law firms, more traditional management consulting firms, HR people, marketing people. So as I said, that the team is put together so that the team collectively has the right skills for your project. Every team member receives 2 to 3 hours worth of training. And among that training is what we call our cultural competency. So because these are business professionals who are bringing skills and experience to you, they are also learning from you. And we want to make sure that all of our volunteers are not only bringing their skills, but a dose of humility with them, and not coming and with an attitude that they have all the answers for you. Most of our teams meet weekly, virtually, but we really encourage the teams to meet in person and for them to meet in person with you so they can tour your facilities, see a performance, participate in your program, really understand your organization, and it can help make a better project experience for them. And the teams are expected to work about 3 hours a week. The team lead tends to work about 5 to 6 hours a week, and that team lead is who you or your executive director would be meeting with on a weekly basis. So these larger projects go through 3 typical phases. The initial phase, gathering research, reviewing all of your documents, having some initial interviews with boards, constituents, what have you. The middle section, analyzing and evaluating. This is also the point that you and your board would be meeting with the team for a mid-project review. They would be presenting their initial findings, bouncing some of their initial recommendations off of you to get your feedback, and then head into the final phase where they are developing the recommendations and the tools that they're providing you depending on the type of project. What would those deliverables look like? Oftentimes it's a slide deck with a bunch of recommendations. Sometimes it's more of a white paper report. It could be a financial model or some sort of analytic tool. If it's a board project, it might be updated bylaws or an onboarding framework. So it's really, all of these end products are customized for your organization and for your project. So I'm going to pause for a second before I head into our next program just to see if there are any questions that have come up in the chat. Nope.
Nothing in the chat so
Okay.
far.
All right, I will keep rolling. So the other type of consulting project that we have is called on demand, and these are shorter term, uh, many similar types of projects, just scoped down so that one volunteer working with you for about 8 weeks can complete the project. So, instead of being the more full-blown team project, this is something that if you have a more immediate need, maybe you need some marketing communications, quick updates. Maybe instead of a full-blown board assessment, you just need help updating your bylaws. These are available to you on a rolling basis. I should back up and say that the on-track team consulting projects are offered in 2 cohorts a year. So right now, the application is open for fall projects, and then we reopen the application in the fall for spring projects. And I have all the dates later in the deck, so you'll get that information. But on demand, if you have a more immediate need and it's a smaller need, and having a volunteer matched up with you more quickly would be of more benefit to you, then this is probably the type of project that would help you. And for on-demand projects, because this is one volunteer working solo, they are more tenured volunteers. They have at least 5 years of experience. They have the same level of vetting, and they have to apply and be vetted and matched up. And so we have the consulting project on demand, and then we also have thought partnership. And this can be helpful if you're like us, a smaller organization, and maybe you have an HR situation you're dealing with, or you need to have a tough conversation with someone, or you just need someone to bounce some ideas off of. This thought partnership can be really helpful. So this, and I'm not going to go through this in great detail because this is a resource available to you, but it can help give you some initial thinking on what type of project may be best suited for you, and the timing, and just what type of time commitment it would be for you and your team. Okay, so that's an overview of the pro bono consulting. Again, I'll just take a breath and pause for a moment to see if there are any questions about that. Nope. Okay. So I will next talk about our executive coaching that is available. And all of our coaches that we recruit, they are volunteers. They are licensed, certified professional coaches, and we vet for that. And many of them are solo practitioners, and they are volunteering their time, taking away from their personal revenue to give of their time to provide coaching. And, it seems like ever since the pandemic, there's just been a constant state of chaos for the nonprofit sector, and we understand how challenging that can be as you're trying to guide your organization, guide your staff, work with your board. Many board members may have lost their jobs last year. There's a lot going on, and it can be helpful to have an objective third party to work through some of these things with. So that's we stood up our executive coaching program last year in the wake of all the executive orders, and it was going to be a short-term program, but it has been so popular, we are keeping it going, and we have volunteers who are ready, willing, and able. So if this is something that would be of interest to you, it is available year-round, and you apply, and as we have the right coach, we would match you up. So again, if you're thinking about decision making and maybe your confidence has been shaken a little bit, you just need a little extra support or a confidential sounding board, this is available to you, and we're happy to help you. So the next program is On Board. This is our board matching program, and we match candidates with local nonprofit boards. And many of our candidates, they are interested in board service. Maybe they had a great experience as a volunteer on one of our consulting projects, and so they wanted to dive a little bit more deeper into supporting and working with a nonprofit, but they don't know where to begin. And so they come to us, and we with all of our programs, on board included, we are recruiting candidates with a wide variety of interests in different issue areas, and we're recruiting nonprofits that serve a wide variety of areas, and certainly food security being among them. And so as you think about, is there an opening on your board, or are you looking for your next finance chair? Maybe you're going to be strategic planning next year, and it would be great to have a board member. Maybe that's a skill set that it would be great to have a board member who has experience with strategic planning. Think about what your ideal next board member would look like. And we can help you find that individual. And we do ask that you have at least a $500,000 operating budget, and you have to have director and operator insurance. That is non-negotiable about the insurance. But we talk to board candidates, and what issue areas are you most interested in? If you live in Montgomery County, do you want to be matched up with an organization that serves Montgomery County, or what jurisdiction? We make sure we ask that our candidates have at least 10 years of work experience, and they come, just like our volunteers come, from a wide variety of professional backgrounds. So do our onboard candidates. And we also ask them about their personal capacity for meeting a give-get, so that we can take that into consideration with any give-get expectations you have as a nonprofit, and make sure that we have the right match. So the process, nonprofits and candidates apply. The applications are open year round. We are taking a look at, what you are looking for as a nonprofit, what the candidates are looking for, and we're providing training. So nonprofits love our candidates because we are first and foremost making sure they are clear on what fiduciary responsibility means as a board member. We are making sure that they know what a 990 looks like, and that even if they're not on the finance committee, they need to look at the 990 as part of their fiduciary responsibility. We are training them to recognize that even if they're not a fundraising professional, fundraising is part of the expectations of board service. So this is why nonprofit love our candidates, because they are trained and ready and really understand. And we're also training nonprofits. So if you are coming to us looking for a board member, you're looking for a board member who may be outside of your more traditional network. And we want to make sure that you have a clear onboarding process, that you have you structure your board meetings in such a way that someone who is new to the board could really feel comfortable speaking up and participating from day one. So we're going to give you guidance on that. And if we find the right candidate for you, we will introduce that candidate to you, so that executive director, board chair, nominating committee, you can all kind of vet each other. There's no obligation on either the part of the candidate or the nonprofit to accept a match, but we're really good at what we do, and we've been doing this for a long time. And so 90% of the time when we introduce a candidate to a nonprofit, that candidate is invited to join the board. If for whatever reason you or the candidate don't feel like it's the right fit, then we will put you back into the queue for the next matching cycle, and keep you active in our pool for up to 12 months. Oh, and we also expect, when we make it clear with our candidates, that they need to be prepared to commit to serve at least one term. Many of them go on to serve, as long as they can. So just quickly about our low Bono services. So low Bono strategic planning, if you want professional guidance through the strategic planning process, so we can do a variety of things for you. We can do the full-blown soup to nuts, start to finish strategic plan, or perhaps you have a lot of the elements and you just want to refresh, and you want someone to help facilitate a board retreat to update your strategic plan. We can kind of do it all, and our fees are very, very reasonable. It's a bit of an earned revenue opportunity for us, and it's a way to make consultant level strategic planning more accessible to nonprofits. And then for AI integration, so we do have AI available in our pro bono consulting. The difference being that the low bono, you're actually having someone you walk you through the integration and implementation. So pro bono, you're given a recommendation and a menu that you would be responsible for implementing. Low bono, we can guide you through it. And so we as a nonprofit, I can easily say that because of the way we have integrated AI into our processes and just daily culture, I'm saving 10 to 12 hours a week using AI tools to help me with things that ordinarily would take a long time just to speed up the process. And so with our AI integration support, there is a kind of spectrum of options available, everything from a custom workshop, a 2-hour workshop for your organization, all the way to a 6-week integration sprint where there are weekly meetings and you and your team are guided through how to implement. So if that is of interest, there's more information on our website, and I'm certainly happy to connect with you to talk more about that. So we've gone through all of our programs. Now I just want to kind of circle back to why what we do is really helpful for the nonprofit sector. So most of my colleagues, like myself, we come from the corporate world. We are now nonprofit leaders, so we have a lot of experience. It helps us when we're recruiting professionals because we can speak corporate speak, but we also really understand the nonprofit sector and the challenges that you're facing and how to scope those into a project that our volunteers can work on. We carefully vet and train the volunteers for you. I think sometimes there are nonprofits that have had pro bono services with mixed results. And so sometimes there can be like a leap of faith. Is pro bono too good to be true? I can tell you that with us, it's not too good to be true. It actually is true, just because of how refined our processes are over doing this for 25 years. And we don't just match and disappear. So we are with you and your volunteer team or volunteers every step of the way. So there are regular check-ins. We have a sort of upper management layer of volunteers, some of our most experienced volunteers who serve as project advisors. So there's a lot of hands-on support, but for the most part, our volunteers are so well vetted and trained. We don't need to micromanage because they're doing such a great job, but we are available if you ever had any concerns or questions through the process. And we're really about that long-term impact. So we check in, a year and 2 years after you've received your recommendation. We want to know how's the implementation going. And we hear from nonprofits that there's more fiscal clarity, more organizational focus, that as we're interviewing nonprofits right now for our upcoming project cycle, we're hearing from them that Compass project from 2 years ago, we're still using it, and because you are working with volunteers over a period of time. They make great board members. They really understand your organization. You've had an extended sort of vetting and interviewing process. So you can certainly use our onboard program to find board members, but many nonprofits ask their members of their volunteer team to join their boards as well. So just to highlight some recent client feedback, because we do have really comprehensive end of project surveys that all volunteers and clients complete. 97% of nonprofits would recommend Compass Pro Bono to another nonprofit. And I really want to point out that we asked in this end of project survey if the nonprofit has worked with either other paid or pro bono consultants. And the vast majority say that even our work is better even than some paid consultants that they've worked with. So I think that speaks to just how committed we are to making this a great experience and have great outcomes for you and your teams. So on track, the team consulting projects, the application is open right now. And I'm going to send, Anne Marie and the team will be sending out along with these slides, some information and links. So if you want to schedule an initial intake call with my colleague Beverly to talk about a potential project, there's a link to her calendar, so you can grab time on it. If now is not the right time, but you are interested in an on-track project, the applications will reopen in September through November 9th. So, it's the same process, just different timing. So those projects would begin in February. The fall projects, the application that's open right now, those projects begin at the end of October. On-demand and executive coaching is available to you year-round, and as soon as we have the right volunteer, we match you up. Onboard similarly is available year-round. We do 3 times a year, we take all of the applications we've received and do matching in the next matching cycle. If you need a board member sooner rather than later, the next matching cycle will use the nonprofit or the applications that are received by August 5th. And then strategic planning and AI integration support. If any of the low Bono things are of interest to you, inquiries are accepted year-round. So I'm going to quickly go through these, but you're going to receive these slides. So if you are interested in applying, step 1 is to create a portal account. It's pretty intuitive. If you've created a portal account for any organization, it's a similar process. And if you go to our website, you'll see the create your account buttons in yellow on just about every page. Just make sure you sign up as a nonprofit. The other option is to sign up as a volunteer. You'll see very different applications. So just double check that you sign up as a nonprofit, enter your email, some brief organizational details, and then you'll get an email when your account is ready. We say up to 3 business days. We tend to approve them pretty quickly. It just depends on volume. And because we're a small team, it sometimes takes a day or 2. Once you have your portal account, you can see the nonprofit opportunities, the applications that are open, submit. You can start an application, come back to it. And if at any point in the process you have any technological issues, just email portal@compassprobono.org and someone would be happy to assist you. So my contact information is here. It will also be in the follow-up information that you receive. And I'm going to stop the share so I can see all of you. And I'm happy, because we have a few minutes, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
While people are taking that all in, I'm just going to first of all say thank you so much to Amy for an incredible presentation. That is a wealth of resources available to our community. What struck me personally was help finding board members because I think some of us, I know the first time I served on a board was of a PTA, and I did not feel like I knew, what I was actually responsible to do. And I think that a lot of people find themselves, just magically in these positions and don't necessarily understand all of the rules and the training that go into that, or we get asked to be on boards because of, knowledge of a subject area, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you understand, the entity that is a board and its responsibilities. So I think that's in and of itself is an incredible resource.
And I'm going to be candid. We sometimes do Compass for Compass board matching and and projects. So, we will have candidates who maybe they have served on a couple of boards and they've never had formal training, and they really, really appreciate having that clear guidance and understanding, so that they want to be a good board member, and it's helpful to have that roadmap. I thought I saw a question come up in the chat. Oh, board matching. Oh, I think there was a direct message. Could you be more explicit about working with faith-based organizations? If we know that certainly there are a number of housing and homelessness organizations, food distribution, organizations that have come from the faith-based community. And so, what we just want to make sure that the project you're looking for, if you are part of a church community or a program that was started by a church or synagogue, for example, um, you know, project and the C3 status ideally is for your food-based organization as opposed to religious services. So that is the clear distinction. There are a number of organizations that we've served that evolved out of church ministries and are now standalone organizations and programs, but still affiliated with that, church or religious institution. And so that's just the distinction. It just, we're not going to help you, uh, your church or religious institution board, for example. Any other questions?
Okay,
All right.
I think we will turn things over to Erin, but Amy, I hope you're able to stay on. If not, we're happy to pass on any questions that may come. As again, as folks kind of take this all in, feel free to keep sharing those in the chat, and either Amy or myself can get those answered for you.
Yep. Happy to stick around.
Thanks so much. All right, I'll turn things over now to Erin.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share. All right. All right. Can everyone see my screen okay? Yes? Okay, good. Okay, great. So today I'm going to be talking about generating revenue. As an organization that addresses food security, homelessness, the various issues that I understand many of you are involved in, as well as what it's like to work with a legal clinic connected to a law school. So, quickly, just who am I? So, my name's Erin. I'm a corporate business attorney. I started working in San Francisco with tech startups and then moved over to work with nonprofits, which was much more fulfilling for me. So that's been great. I came to DC so I could work with the Entrepreneurship Law Clinic at American University's Washington College of Law. So our clinic, the Entrepreneurship Law Clinic, which I'm going to call the ELC, is a pro bono legal clinic that provides legal work to mission-driven and community-oriented businesses in the DMV area. So that includes both for-profit and nonprofit businesses. We advise on things like corporate structuring and entity formation, compliance with tax and regulatory matters, obviously very relevant to nonprofits, financing strategies and capital raising, and then as part of all of that, various types of contract drafting and negotiation. One of the other things we do is we focus on the role of transactional lawyers in advancing economic justice and community-centered lawyering, which is one of the big emphasis that we have for our students. And then within the clinic, the students are actually the attorneys. So they act as the attorneys with the clients, and then they're overseen and supervised by the professors in the clinic, which is myself and two other professors. So the students operate off of our bar licenses. And I'm going to talk a little bit more later about what exactly that looks like. So for what I want to cover with you all today is, first of all, just really high level general considerations for revenue generation. Then some rules that are specific to nonprofits if you're thinking about a commercial enterprise. And then finally, I'll get into just some more details about working with law school clinics. And if we have time, we'll do a little Q&A at the end. A quick caveat of just the things I'm going to be talking about today are kind of high level general concepts and rules that are not specific to any individual business or organization. So take these rules and these concepts if they're relevant to you, delve a little bit deeper, but just know that I won't be providing legal advice that is specific to anyone's particular situation. Okay, so first of all, I think you all will know this, but just common forms of revenue generation for business. First, just grants and subsidies from counties, organizations, right? Donations, if you are a nonprofit, is usually the bulk of the revenue. Accepting SNAP or EBT benefits can also help generate revenue. And then there's the option of direct to consumer sales. So when I talk about that, I'm talking about a commercial enterprise. So that's the language that I'm going to use. And that just means you are selling something or providing some service to the public for to generate profit. So an example, selling produce at a farmer's market or engaging in a catering activity, right? If you're doing direct to consumer sales, there's special rules for nonprofits that you just need to be aware of. Okay, so the first thing that you want to think about in terms of generating revenue is just what type of entity are you? So there's obviously many different types of entities, LLCs, C corporations, sole proprietorships. What type of entity you are controls really everything about your organization, your liability, your governance structure, how you can take funding, right? So if you're a C corporation that is not a nonprofit, you can sell equity so that you can raise money, right? If you're a nonprofit, you take donations so you can raise money. So there's just different ways you can do things depending on the type of entity that you are. So you definitely want to be, really locked in on your entity structure, which also affects, how you do your reporting, taxes, things like that, right? And then the second level of that is, are you a for-profit or a nonprofit? If you're a nonprofit, typically you're going to be some type of corporation. There are some states that allow LLCs to be nonprofits, but that's not that common. So if you're a nonprofit, you're probably some type of corporation. And I'm not going to get into things like charitable trusts and stuff like that. I don't think that's relevant to this crowd. So basic sources of revenue generation between a for-profit and a nonprofit. So if you're a for-profit, the most that you're probably bringing in is from whatever your commercial activity is, right? If you're a nonprofit, it's probably mostly through donations. You can get small business loans as a for-profit and as a nonprofit. There's sort of more specific types of loans that you would get as a nonprofit and different types of lenders as well, if you're going to do a type of small business loan. And then grants, right? You can get grants whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit. And then if you're a for-profit, you can take investments, right? So you can actually have investors come in as part of your organization. If anyone here is a for-profit and you're considering taking some kind of investment, and when I say that, that doesn't just mean like a big investor coming in. That could be a family friend, a family member who says, "Oh, I just really want to give you, like however much for your organization." That is probably still going to qualify as an investment under securities laws. So you just want to be really aware if you are taking any money like that, that you're abiding by securities laws. That gets missed sometimes. A lot of small businesses, are just taking funding and not really thinking about those rules. So if you are taking that type of funding, I do recommend that you reach out to some kind of legal counsel just to make sure that you're not running afoul of any securities laws. So that's pretty much everything I'm going to say about for-profit organizations. So now I'm going to transfer into just nonprofits. As a nonprofit, obviously you take the donations, grants, some of those business loans, and then you can bring in money from sales, right? There's a variety of ways that you can bring in money from just your general business. But what we really want to get into today is something beyond, what your organization was maybe initially set up to do, right? So how could I bring in more money, generate more revenue by sort of digging into maybe more of a commercial space? So here's the big question that I'm going to look at. I'm a nonprofit and I want to generate more revenue. Can I start a commercial enterprise to help me raise money? Now, I'm going to give you a really typical lawyer answer, which is yes, but a big but, right? Of, okay, how can we do this in a way where we're not going to jeopardize our tax exempt status? Because at the end of the day, that is the biggest thing that we need to be thinking about. So bear with me. I'm going to give a couple nonprofit basics. What do we mean by nonprofit, right? What is the difference? The difference is what we call, this is a legal term, the non-distribution constraint, right? Which just means that you can't distribute your profits. So sometimes there's a misconception that you can't generate a bunch of profit as a nonprofit. You can, in fact, right? You just can't distribute it to your trustees. It all has to be filtered back into the organization. It's just revenue minus expenses, right? So if you have more profit, that's actually okay, assuming that it's part of the mission of the organization. So when we think about that, when we think about what makes you a nonprofit and gives you this special status, which is has this huge benefit, right, of not being taxed on income, property taxes, right? There's a variety of things that are great about being a nonprofit. You have to abide by a couple rules. So first, you do your entity formation. That happens at the state level, right? But then if you want the tax exemption, you apply to the IRS, and this is under IRC 501(c)(3). And you have to abide by these two requirements, right? Organize for an exempt purpose, which has to do with your founding documents, so your articles of incorporation, your bylaws, and then the operational test, which is that all of your activities have to further your exempt purpose. And this is the one I really want to drill in on when we're thinking about a commercial enterprise. Your exempt purpose is going to fall under one of these categories that are defined in the statutes. My guess is almost everyone here, if you're a nonprofit, falls under the charitable category, unless you're, like specifically religious or like an educational organization or something like that. It's kind of like a catch-all for everyone else who is doing something, has some exempt purpose. You're going to fall under charitable. So what we really want to look at is, what does this organizational test mean? And what it really means is that everything that you are doing has to go to that exempt purpose, which means that any kind of commercial activities that you are doing that are not in line with your exempt purpose can actually jeopardize your 501(c)(3) status. Okay, so to dig into this a little bit further, say, okay, well, we want to do this, we want to generate some more revenue, we have something that we think can raise a little bit of money for us. How can we do that and not threaten our status? So a couple things you want to think about. First is just the broad question, does it further your exempt purpose? This is often a very fact-specific analysis that often requires legal review or consultant review. Sometimes your tax advisors can help you with this type of thing. So, for example, this is one of the examples that that's in the Treasury regulations. So there's a nonprofit that trains children in performing arts. So they teach them singing, dancing, things like that. They do a show at the end of their session and they sell tickets to the show. Now, selling the tickets generates a profit for this organization. They sell more, they get more money from the ticket sales than they actually need to cover the cost of the show. So they have a profit there. It's a commercial activity. What the IRS said, though, is that the performances are actually essential to the purpose of the organization because those performances allow the students to actually show what they have learned, right, to that community. So it's so essential that it contributes importantly to their exempt purpose. So that type of commercial activity is going to be part of the exempt purpose. You don't have to think beyond that. In contrast, let's think about an organization that maybe their purpose is to help the unhoused in their community. So maybe they provide things like clothes, food, mental health services, that type of thing. They want to supplement that by selling shoes to support their mission. This is a commercial activity that, just under only those facts that we have, likely is not essential to the purpose of that organization, right? You don't have to sell shoes in order to do this mission of helping the unhoused in the community, right? And so that's something that maybe is not going to further the exempt purpose. That doesn't stop your analysis right there. It doesn't mean you can't do that activity. It just means that you have to start thinking about how you can do it in a way where it's not going to hurt your tax exempt status, right? So the next thing you want to think about is, are the commercial activities a substantial part of the business? So some of the considerations here are you devoting a lot of the organization's resources to this activity? So if we take that example of selling shoes as part of an organization that is helping the in-house community, are a lot of your employees working on the shoe selling side? That is a hard phrase to say. Okay. So do you have a lot of employee services devoted to this? Say you have an office or a place where people can come, is half the space a shoe store, right? Like those are the types of things you would want to be thinking about, of how big of a part of your business is this? Another thing to think about is, are you competing with similar for-profit businesses in this space? right? So are there other shoe sellers in the area or even not in the area that just sell shoes at the same market rate? Are you advertising in the same way? Because if you are, you're a nonprofit competing with for-profits with this benefit that the for-profits don't have, which is your tax exemption, right? So that's the type of thing that the IRS is going to be thinking about as well. So if you're engaging in these activities, you want to make sure they're not overtaking your exempt purpose, right? Okay. So if you're interested in one of these commercial endeavors and you really want to protect your tax exempt status, there's a couple ways that you can do this and still engage in some of these commercial activities. So first, you can keep that activity in-house and just pay taxes on it. This is something that organizations do to avoid getting in a situation where they're doing a bunch of commercial activity that doesn't further their exempt purpose. You don't want to get in trouble with the IRS for doing that. So a way you can do that is to just pay your taxes on it. So this is the test under the Internal Revenue Code. If you're doing a trade or business that's regularly carried on and not substantially related to the organization's exempt purpose, then you need to pay what's called the unrelated business income tax or UBIT on that activity. Um, all of these are legal terms, unfortunately, right? And so you do need a little bit more of an analysis. When you think about something that's regularly carried on, for example, that means regularly carried on in the same way that it would be for a for-profit. So say you want to run like a kids camp for 2 weeks of the year or something, and you're like, oh, we're going to do a summer kids camp. That's maybe only 2 weeks of the whole year, but if it's the type of summer camp that only happens in the summer, and other, organizations only run summer camps in the summer, that's probably going to be an activity that's regularly carried on under this standard, right? So there's a lot of different considerations to think about here. And again, that's one of the things that a lawyer, maybe your accountant, can kind of talk you through to see, are we venturing into that territory where we might need to pay some taxes on this activity? Um, Another thing to think about there is it can't be like kind of like I said, even if you're going to do this kind of activity in-house and then pay taxes on it, it still can't be so substantial that it overtakes your exempt purpose, right? Like you still have to be doing your exempt purpose to keep your tax exempt status. So you want to be really mindful of the percentage of UBIT that you're paying in terms of your revenue. So if you're getting like the thing that is difficult, there's no hard and fast rule about this actually. So I can't give you an exact number, but if you're like, oh, well, 50% of our income is coming from unrelated business income, that's something that would probably be a flag for the IRS. Sometimes people throw out like 10% is maybe okay. To be honest, it really does depend on the activity and how it's related to the organization. So there really isn't like one rule about it, but it's just something you want to be really mindful of. Another thing that you can think about, another alternative, is to actually establish a wholly or partially owned for-profit subsidiary to house your commercial operations. So this is a type of thing to consider if maybe you're looking to generate more significant revenue and devote more resources to a type of commercial activity because you think it can raise a lot of money for you. And then the proceeds from that can be donated back to the nonprofit to help supplement the income. Um, so the thing that's important about this is that it is an investment. It's an investment up front, right? Because you're creating another organization. You need to have enough resources to be able to devote to that commercial activity. And the businesses really do need to have separation, a separate existence, which means that you're going to want to have separate finances from the subsidiary. The corporate identity needs to be different, right? So different name. The board should not entirely overlap. So it really and it can't be the way the IRS says it is it can't just be a mere instrumentality of the parent. So just throwing up a LLC and incorporating an entity is not going to get you there to actually provide that protection. You need to actually maintain a level of actual separation so that the commercial activities are being run. It's really the day-to-day activities are being run by that subsidiary. The thing is, it's still your nonprofit would still be the parent of that subsidiary. So if the managers or the leaders were doing things that you didn't like, you're still in control of that subsidiary, right? You can remove that board, you can change things. So that's a way that you can kind of house these activities. A couple of the considerations that you would want to make if you were thinking about something like this is again, just the substantiality of the activities. If you're going to keep it in-house, making sure that you're being really mindful of that. Um, Also considering if any of the activities that you want to do pose any kind of unique risks that can't be mitigated through insurance or maybe contract terms. So the example of like a kids camp, for instance. So you have a space, you can run the camp, you think it will be a good revenue generator. You're dealing with children, and that is higher risk potentially. And so even if you could run that in-house, maybe it would make sense to actually pop that out into its own entity so that the liability then stays with that subsidiary. So that's another one of the considerations. And then finally, um, you want to think about if you have any kind of intention of actually raising money through investment. Because if you have a for-profit subsidiary, you can get investors for that subsidiary if that's something that you're interested in doing. If you're not interested in doing that, you don't foresee that, maybe that is a reason to not do that big investment and, kick it out to a subsidiary organization. So I threw a lot at you just now. I think I saw there was a question in the chat. I'm sorry, I can't see it because I'm sharing my screen. If someone could just tell me what the question was.
No, it was just a comment that someone had to leave, but
Okay, great.
unless you
Cool.
got a personal message, I don't see it yet.
Great. Okay, great. All right. So I'm just going to, yeah, given our time, I'm just going to keep going and I'm going to run through really quickly what it's like to work with a law school legal clinic. Um, so these are the types of services that we do. We have a whole range of transactional legal services. I should also say that even at American, at most legal clinics, we operate as basically a mini law firm within the law school that has different practice areas. So our practice area is transactional business law, right? But we have an immigration clinic, we have an IP clinic, there's a tax clinic, right? And so different needs can be addressed by different aspects of our clinic. Most law schools work that way. So you're just going to want to see like what the various practice areas are within the law school. A lot of law schools, my understanding in this area, have some type of business clinic that provides, a variety of these types of business services. It's all pro bono. All of the work is pro bono. The only cost that you would potentially have to pay is any kind of like filing fee or things like that. So say you were going to incorporate a new entity, there's fees associated with that. Those are not covered by the clinic, but all of the legal work is. As I said, you're working with student attorneys, so they're your main point of contact. They're having the meetings with you, they're on the emails with you, but they are very supervised by us as the professors. So we're on all of the communications. We have meetings with them every week. It's a really cool relationship, actually. I've loved seeing the students get so invested in the businesses that they work with. They really, really care about their clients, and I think that they do really stellar work. So it's been a really cool thing to actually just kind of see them as they work with the businesses, and I think the businesses in general, the ones that we've worked with, have been really happy with the relationship that they've also had with these student attorneys. Something to know is that the work runs on a school year schedule, right? Because you're working with students. And so we take clients in the fall and in the spring. So we're doing client recruitment right now for our fall semester. That work would start kind of at the end of August, beginning of September, and then run until right before Thanksgiving. The goal is to have that work done by Thanksgiving. Similarly, in the spring, you'd start at kind of the end of January, beginning of February, and wrap up by April. And you have spring break in there, so it goes a little bit longer. In general, we take projects that can be completed within one semester. So our goal is to be able to onboard, provide that work, and then have it all ready for you to send you out by the end of the semester. Of course, we would not leave you hanging if for some reason something did not get done. We are the attorneys that are going to be on it, so we would help you finish up if there was any kind of lingering things that needed to get wrapped up, even once the semester ended. So that is kind of working with the legal clinics. I'm pretty sure all the law schools in these areas have web pages about their clinics that will have contact information on them about how you can apply. Um, for American, I have my email on here. We also sent this presentation, so I think it will be sent out. So you're more than welcome to contact me if you want more information, if you're interested in working with the clinic. And I will also say our docket fills up pretty quickly. So if you are interested, definitely reach out and we can have a meeting and see if, your project makes sense for our clinic and the timing would work and everything. So that is what I wanted to cover with all of you today. So want to make sure there's no other questions or anything. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm actually gonna
Okay.
stop sharing.
Yeah, yeah. And there
Yeah.
is a question in the chat from Paula. Can you provide a quick answer for a nonprofit, or do you prefer long-term projects? I have a question. Is there a percent of donations that needs to be spent each year?
Um, so to the first question, we prefer longer projects for the students. So we kind of don't do sort of like one-off advising. The goal is to have a project that the students can work on. In terms of percentage of donations needing to be spent each year, I'm not quite sure exactly what you mean by that, but as far as I know, there is not a specific percentage that has to actually get spent. You would just want to make sure, and this kind of goes to what Amy was talking about, that the directors, as the fiduciaries of the organization, are using the money as they should be, right? If you have a mismatch in your donors' expectations and how you're actually using the money, then you just want to be really aware of that. Because if you're just amassing a lot of donations and not actually using any of it, that could be a problem.
Any other questions? Has anyone, I didn't ask at the start of the call, so apologies for making an assumption there, but has anyone on the call, worked with Compass Pro Bono before or with a legal, a law school clinic? Is that something anyone's ever explored or have a relationship with? Dana, I see your thumbs up. Or, and if there's anything anyone wanted to share about that experience or.
I can chime in. Amy. We had a very good
Yeah.
experience with just with the on-demand, 8 weeks working with an individual on a specific thing. I think it was great. I think with either of these, the thing that is hard for myself and probably for a lot of others is it does take a significant chunk, it takes your own time. So it
Mhm.
is another person, another project that you are overseeing. And so, you need to be, when you're doing the applications, you also need to be sure that you have the time to put into that, not only when you're working with a consultant, but after. And so that you can really utilize that project. So they're fantastic resources. I think one of the challenging parts is just being out, like as Amy was talking, I was like, oh my God, I have 10 projects we could do, but I can't manage all, and so and maybe having that conversation with them about, hey, here are the things that we're looking at, and maybe they can help you also to prioritize or to say, oh wait, we have this great consultant. I didn't know at the legal clinic, that's hugely helpful. And I definitely want to follow up, but I think that's just a hard part for many of us who are with small nonprofits is just the management time that it takes from us to be able to utilize these fantastic resources. But that's something where maybe your boards can help out too.
Yeah, and I'll say one thing on that. Depending on the type of project, like we do a lot of corporate governance review, bylaws, things like that, making sure it's actually functional for the organization. So we do a lot with boards. So depending on like what is needed, if you were considering some type of commercial activity, LLC spinoff or something like that, that's a board level decision anyways, right? And so having there, I think that there is an opportunity for that. But thanks for mentioning that, Dana, because I think that's really true as well, is just making sure that like the undertaking is makes sense for where the organization is at any particular moment.
I also appreciate you bringing that up because I think sometimes, I mentioned sometimes people think pro bono is too good to be true. And I think sometimes there's a misperception that pro bono means you will magically have all of the answers when there does need to be active participation from you as the client because you are the expert in your organization.
I do, not to put her on the spot, but I think I saw Randy Drury on the call, who's one, yep, there she is, who is one of our food council members, but also someone the uh, hub leader at the Clifton Park Baptist Church, Silver Spring Hub. And I know Randy has recently taken on her own social enterprise venture. And, I asked if she was willing to just share kind of a few words, about that experience, and kind of how you started on that journey and what kind of resources did you take advantage of to assist you with that, because I know it was no small thing.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, just over the years, I've been in this role with the church for almost 10 years. So as started out as a volunteer, and then, especially during the first little bit of the pandemic, just seeing the roller coaster in funding. Sometimes, produce was available, sometimes it wasn't, sometimes dry goods was available, sometimes it wasn't. Um, so I'm personally just a very spiritual person, and I felt like God was like, you need to find ways for your church to be sustainable to serve your community. So we started some growing aspects at the church. So we have 42 aeroponic towers that we're growing produce. It's kind of a little bit of a drop in the bucket based on the volume that we serve, but it's something that we are, working on that we can hopefully continue. And then we did receive a donation of a shipping container farm, and that will serve about 8,000 plants. But on my own, I decided to start an indoor microgreen farm. And our microgreens are sold as a buy one, give one. So if you purchase any microgreens through us, then we will donate a container to someone at the food distributions here at the church. So in my ideal dream world, we have a large indoor facility that we can then grow lots of different things indoors. That way we are guaranteed to be able to control what is grown all year round, and can control a lot of the factors that sometimes we can't in this climate change world that we're living in. But this is kind of my advocacy, if you will, to try to get the communities to support the community, regardless of whether we're in a pandemic or funding is available, something like that. So it's very small at the moment, but hopefully it will grow into something bigger, that hopefully, again, the community is supporting one another. Metal. Where is metal?
Oh, sorry. Any questions for Randy? Oh, I'm sorry, just catch something in the chat. Oh, Lorian plugging the quality of your microgreens, Randy. So
I'll take the plug. Thank you.
I will also share they weren't able to join us today, but Cross Community up in Gaithersburg did recently launch a social enterprise and entrepreneur development network called the Seed Network. And they shared a flyer with us and a kickoff event that they're going to be hosting that will include in the notes from this call as well. And I think some of that is also aimed at individuals within their community who may be, looking to start their own businesses, that are maybe coming to cross community for other services. And, this could be an opportunity for them to, become more sustainable in their household by forming their own business. And we know that Crossroads, farmers market does that through their they have a micro entrepreneur program through their commercial kitchen in the Tacoma Park area. So we have, a number of these projects kind of circulating within our community. And I think, again, it's just a great idea to kind of add to the back of our minds as, as we're thinking through, potential resources out there to support these ideas in the future. All right, we are just about at time with that portion. But again, I did want to thank Amy and Erin so much for your expertise and sharing these resources. Again, we'll share all the slides, contact information, application dates that are coming up with you all. And we will also go about, we know there are a few other legal clinics in the area, like Erin mentioned, and we will provide those resources as well, so you know where all those types of programs are available locally. All right, I believe I saw Juan join us from the Office of Food Systems Resilience, and Juan was going to share some client satisfaction data that he has been working on and was excited to share with the community today. So thanks, Juan, for joining us.
Yes, hello all. Let me make sure everybody can hear me.
Yep.
Well, yep. All right,
Yep.
great.
And I
Okay.
made you a co-host if you had slides to share.
I did have slides to share.
Awesome.
Thank you. Let me just get used to, we don't do enough Zooms. That's on me. So I'm trying to get all sorted out. All right. Let me see. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, looks good.
Oh, great. I was going to say, as long as we don't see me twice, we're good. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Of course. My name is Juan Cruz. I'm the performance management data analyst for the Office of Food Systems Resilience. This is a county government agency that was created in 2023. Our mission here is to develop and implement interagency budgetary, regulatory, and operational strategies, but most importantly, to build a more equitable, efficient, resilient, and sustainable food system here in the county. And so a lot of our efforts have been taking shape with that mission in mind. And I wanted to mention that our definition of resilience is the capability of individuals, communities, and the county to withstand and rapidly recover from food systems disruptions, stress, and changes. And so I think food sovereignty is at our core of our work, but also we use our work as multi-layered because the food system is multi-layered, not just at the needs base, but also building the whole system, including production, procurement, both food system education along nutrition and health, but also what we're talking a lot about today, which is community food access, right? And so that is one of our focus. And so for that, as a government agency, the tools that we have are funds procured by, and so we used our community food assistance grant, which is a grant that supports 555 food assistance providers and organizations. This is a grant that supports the purchase and distribution of shelf-stable, fresh food, or prepared meals for county residents. And so we awarded this food. I'm sorry, that actually I should have corrected that piece, but we're at 3.5 million in the organizations. And so, as you can see in the food access and the food, or what we call CFA, Community Food Assistance, we have multiple ways that our partners, our 55 organizations, distribute food to the community: pre-packaged boxes, choice pantries, prepared meals, retail access, and also family markets. And so uh, our partners sent us monthly reports that then we turn into information. Also, part of receiving funds for the county is that our partners implement a satisfaction survey. And so this satisfaction survey is optional for clients, for the residents of the county. All that the grantees have to do is simply do a good faith effort to offer it to their clients. It is a digital survey. It is distributed, as I mentioned, to clients. It is optional, of course. And why do we do that? We want to gather basically and understand the quality, strengths, and areas of improvement of our food assistance service. Um, and how are we collecting this? We, the county, provided a survey link to each of our grantees, and also a printable QR code for them to um, deliver that to their clients. We also share this. Both our partners can ask us anytime for their data. We're happy to provide it. If they don't do that anyway, they'll get one at the end of the grant period. Every grantee gets these results to them, or you can request them at any time. So a lot of work went into this satisfaction survey, both on the design phase and also understanding how to deliver it to, again, roughly 55 partners. We didn't want to, obviously, we know everybody, as I mentioned here before, there are various ways of food distributions that each partner does, along with both nonprofit organizations, both operating out of their buildings, out of not their rented buildings, different facilities, different staffing, volunteer run. So we try to be as flexible as possible while maintaining a certain standard of questions, so that we are able to gauge that. So the data I'm going to show you today is from November of this year, started at the beginning of the CFA grant to present. At the beginning of the grant, we ask all the grantees whether they would adopt our survey, or if they had a survey already going for them, that we will work together to make sure that this collecting similar information, so that at the end we are able to analyze the information. We, from November to now, have collected around 2,658 responses. These are responses from community members, from residents. We were very intentional that we wanted the survey to be quick. So the estimated time to complete is around 2 minutes, and it's running on the SurveyMonkey platform if you are interested about platforms. Another piece that was that we were very intentional on in our design is that it is multilingual. As you know, Montgomery County has a vast wealth of diversity, and along that, the county has identified through the Language Access Office the top 6 languages in the county. And so with their partnership, we at the office were able to code these languages into the survey, so that when a community member selected their language, the entire experience, all the way from the titles, the buttons, everything was in their native language. And so this is just a sample of what this will look like on a phone. Most of the community members fill this on a mobile device, and so we wanted to make sure we designed the survey in a platform that accommodated this as well. So a little bit about the results. So the first question we ask is just an overall satisfaction. And so we can see that all out of our responses, we obtained 87% overall satisfaction with the services. And so we wanted to make sure, roughly there's 3% that are neutral. And so, you can think of it as like about 90% to marginal to overall satisfaction with the services overall. Again, this is aggregating all 52 organizations. And so just wanted to give you a sense of this is just overall CFA satisfaction. One of the pieces that I wanted to point out here is these icons you see here, these emojis, are actually very intentional. In our first iteration of this, we found out that there was some, even through our translation, even in English, there was sometimes a confusion between unsatisfied and satisfied, and which one folks who wanted to put in there, because we saw some responses where somebody had identified very unsatisfied, but their comments at the bottom, when in this survey there's a comment box that tells them like, tell me anything else, they were just super positive, including like overall quality and everything. So we saw this sort of dissonance between what they put down versus the comments at the end. And so I think adding a non-verbal cue to the responses added to increase the quality of the responses in the survey. I just wanted to kind of call that out in case you see that. It's not meant to just be informal. It actually has a, a quality assurance purpose for the survey. We also asked how satisfied you are with the amount of food that you receive at this location. And so we saw an 86% satisfaction there. Same thing for the quality of the food. So we asked them to rate the quantity and also the quality of the food. This is a new change we did this fiscal year. In the past, we had collapsed those two questions together, but I think through feedback from our partners, we recognized that they wanted to specifically dig into the difference between whether their clients prefer the quantity and the quality separately. And so we were able to do that this year, and these are some of the results. The question we ask here is, we just simply want residents to identify their top 3 most useful food. And again, the wording here was particularly, we thought about this a lot and wanted to really think of what are sort of the items that the community finds the most useful. And so we identify obviously fresh fruits and vegetables. The majority of residents that filled the survey, about more than 3/4 of them prefer fresh fruits and vegetables. Over half of clients prefer eggs, and also meat, poultry, fish, basically your basic protein, and about more than 1 in 3 with milk, and you see the rest of the items there. One thing I did want to point out is we have a lot of our grains and pastas here in this section. And again, they are another form of, they're a big item, I would say, also in the CFA. And of course, these are also the ones you would find the most in food distributions and food banks. As you all know from doing this work, eggs, are hard to purchase, hard to come by, hard to store. Meat, poultry, fish, proteins, milk, these are all things that require refrigeration, right? And so we will come back to that in a little bit when we start looking at the comments that we receive from our residents as well. But I just wanted to tease that in there. We also asked, how would you describe the impact of this program? Especially we were interested here to really find what the impact of this program has had on the residents and their families. And so at the top, we find that, of course, as we know, the food system is not in a vacuum. Economic challenges, affordability issues make it so that those are the top impact of this program. The ability to save money and use it for other needs, the ability to have enough food to eat, both for themselves and particularly for children. And so you could see that about half, use this as a supplemental to be able to do that. And so this is, again, not folks, you can think of this as like, without using the term, I guess there's critically food insecure, and then there's those are, more moderately food insecure. And although this is not a measure of that, I think it just points to the fact that it is addressing an issue with the affordability of things overall. So the economic and food security impact are shown in this particular graph. Another piece I wanted to mention, and one option we added this year, because we, again, we're thinking a lot, and something that I'm personally even just interested in, is the mental health aspect of food insecurity and the impact of it. And so we talked through and received some feedback about we wanted to ask the question if the program helped reduce mental stress on the residents. And so I just wanted to point here that the physical and mental health impacts that this program is having, about 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 residents that filled the survey also mentioned that they had a health impact and a mental health impact. Of course, we're asking folks to list their all that apply, and so these are all individually measured, right? So out of 100 responses, 46% of them said this. Out of 100 responses, 100% of responses, 26%. Just so you know how to read that graph here. So you shouldn't be adding these percentages. These are all just representative of the 100% of responses. 26% of those said that they had healthier foods in their diet was a big impact. So just to let you know what you're looking at. Okay. So to sort of wrap up, again, the survey is intentionally short, but very purposeful in phrasing of things. And so we wanted to be open for suggestions of how the service can improve, including food, but any other type of things that they would like to see in future distributions. And so we collected a lot of different data. And as you can see, also the multi-language effort really did bear fruit, pun intended, because it allowed us to receive feedback in multiple languages, which tells me that if we had not done that, there are these particular community members would not have been able to provide their feedback. And so as a narrative feedback, you can see a few themes across languages. The importance of fresh fruits, produce, and proteins, some mentions on quality and safety, and a large amount of gratitude and praise among many languages. And so to summarize, these are just examples of what we saw, but there is main themes that were captured in our narrative feedback. You can see about 1,223 responses were provided in the narrative, in the question about providing narrative feedback, because of course all these questions are voluntary, so none of them are required of the client. And so the top one, about 298 responses, pointed to the importance of fresh produce and proteins. 241 pointed to the quantity and frequency, basically asking for either more food, more continuity, more cadence of distributions. You see your gratitude and praise. There were also just highlights of a specific item requests, right? Rice, beans, butter, cheese, milk, cereal, but also non-food items like toiletries, toilet paper, baby, toddler items, and also gift cards. So us as an office, we're also considering this and seeing this as a viable option for in distribution. So we're thinking of how do we expand our retail access programs, right? And so knowing that gift cards sort of provide the most choice to our residents. And anyway, so this is just another confirmation of that. I hope that also, just speaking on the specific items requests, I know a lot of food distributions can't always pick what they want to distribute or have all these different all these different challenges. So I hope this you shouldn't read this as a critique, but rather I think just a learning opportunity for what you're hearing from your residents. We as an office don't use this as a performance measure. So it's not a really performance driven. It's not coming from that angle. It's really more coming from an angle of learning from the residents, hearing what we're hearing, and trying to get us learning as much information as possible. Just wanted to kind of say that because I know you can read this item and be like, well, I'm trying to get cheese, but I can't. And so that's okay. It's not about that. Distribution and operations is another theme, right? The lines, the wait time, starting times and scheduling, organizations and notifications, volunteer conduct, delivery assistance. All these are themes that are coming out from the residents' responses. Another one is speaking on the quality and safety of food. So some responses come out as they talk about and mention expiration issues, refrigeration, checking, receiving basically expired food. And so, again, just something else to follow up on. And then Another theme was just a balance of fresh foods and between fresh foods and fewer cans, a better balance of like what everybody gets. So just a concept, the idea of balance in the distribution among just items, but also across distributions to household was also another piece. As I mentioned to you, we had cross-languaged responses, and so we went and tried to analyze: are there differences in these themes based on the language that the person filled the survey on, right? And so we found requests for fresh food and proteins are most consistent across all languages, right? So all languages are really pointing to this piece. Spanish responses show more emphasis on quantity and frequency, so more often, or maybe more quantity of food that they're receiving, but also more cadence of distribution. And this is just in comparison to other non-English languages. They also express high gratitude across compared to other languages. Vietnamese responses are less focused on fresh, so less breadth across other topics. The quality of safety signals, so expired, spoiled refrigeration type of issues, show up mainly in English responses and a few in Chinese and Korean entries, suggesting targeted quality assurance improvements could help in a multilingual trust. So then we talked about operations, so line management, start times, things like that, are primarily raised in English respondents, with some mentions also in Spanish respondents. All right, so the lessons and recommendations. So this is just my last slide here. I think the first thing is language access, right, continues to be a very important thing in all distributions, especially nonverbal cues. So it's one thing to say, turn right and go around, then put an arrow like to the right. And so all those things are like nonverbal cues will be very helpful for different things, both at the produce or anything like that. So you can think of symbols, pictures, you name it. Fresh proteins and produce are a priority. Considerations for one thing to consider is to have minimum per household to meet most common items. That's one strategy that could work. Again, these are all just recommendations, not mandates. Pilot, I think the other thing with the frequency is you could pilot an increased frequency. So you can go from maybe twice a month to every other week, and ramp up those frequencies, especially in Spanish forward outreach, where demand is highest. And then you can monitor that uptake, right? Monitor how it goes. Another piece that we are learning here is strengthening quality assurance, right? So adding Spire spot checks or a cold chain log to know where things have been, how long they've been in cold chain, how long have they been off of their cold storage, things like that. I think one important piece is also considering to post multilingual signage. So whether that's if you check dates or if there's other, I think one thing I remember hearing too is that sometimes expiration dates are conceptualized differently by different cultures, right? Or used by, and the difference in that. I think one consideration is if you can translate that language, if you come up with a standardized language, one that you've vetted in English, and then you translate it into other languages, and hand that out or have that out somewhere, I think it would fare very positively for your distributions. And this is, again, what we're learning from residents, right, as a need. And then improving cues and communications. So, for example, things like door greeters, start time adherence, lane monitoring, text alerts, or changes. You may also consider exploring delivery services for seniors and disabled. That's something else that we learned from our responses. So, with that, sorry, I wasn't monitoring time, Anne Marie. So, but I was trying to go fast because I know time is quick. I just want to thank everybody for your time, and happy to answer any questions.
A couple of quick things because I did see it in the chat. One, so someone had asked about suggestions for getting more additional responses. And I would certainly call on members of the community here if you are someone that has had success, with getting a good turnout to your client surveys. Please feel free to share that, either now or in the chat or send me an email after, and we're happy to, put those ideas to the group. I know oftentimes, folks doing a grab and go distribution just have a harder time, than people who are seeing clients in an office and there's an intake process or there's other services being offered. So, just from those of you, though, that are doing larger numbers and are having success, please do share that. Juan, as far as expiration dates, I'll just say that's something obviously, within the community as a whole in terms of food waste. Those are words that, everyone has to do a better job understanding that these are mostly, not safety issues, but they're best quality. And, usually things are good for much longer than their dates suggest. Although we know that there are food assistance providers that don't make expired foods parts of their distribution, but offer them in kind of a separate space or, in a free table to take so that they avoid those kinds of challenges. But I think there's definitely room for education there. Um, don't mean to cut anyone off. I'm happy to stay on a little longer, but just sharing, we are not having an August food security community call, so we will see you in September. For those of you that are members of the Peer Learning Circles program, we're still having other opportunities to get together later this month in August and September. So hope to see you at some of those opportunities. But like I said, happy to stay on for anyone that is looking to engage in a little bit more conversation about the client satisfaction.